Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. And today, the object of interest is this little unassuming green PCB DDR4 RAM stick. I've only got one of these. I ordered a second one, but that one is not here yet. So I already went ahead and overclocked this in single channel and also ran some other RAM sticks in single channel to compare how good this is. And the reason why I bothered getting and overclocking this RAM stick is that this is Samsung 8 gigabit BDI. So this is using the same chip as this kit, which is a 4400 megahertz CL17 1939 1.45 volt kit. This is probably, this is about twice as expensive as getting two of these. But this is like proper BDI because this overclocks like pretty well, which isn't really given for these OEM sticks. So it's been somewhat widely known that getting OEM BDI sticks is not a very good idea because BDI has a big variance. It's very inconsistent. And these OEM sticks, they're only binned for JDEC and JDEC voltage. There's no XMP on these. So there's no guarantee as to how good the voltage scaling and also scaling of frequencies and timings is going to be on an OEM stick like this. So basically you're playing the silicon lottery on hard mode because you not only need one chip to be good, you need all 8 of them to be good to get any decent overclocking out of this. Your other memory manufacturers like your Patriots, your Corsair, your G-Skill, they test their BDI chips at higher voltage and higher frequencies. And even if you get like a 3200 1.35 volt kit, the timings on that kit are gonna be much lower than what you get on these. And 1.35 volt is already quite a bit higher than 1.2 volts. So you're guaranteed to have voltage scaling on the chips, you're guaranteed to have higher frequencies and better timings, and exponentially so if you get higher speed bins, especially higher voltage bins. Like if you wanna buy good BDI, check that it's rated at like at least 1.45 or like 1.5 volts. That's a pretty good metric to figure out whether your chips are going to be good or like a slightly weaker bin. Like the 1.35 volt stuff, like it still clocks pretty decently, but it's usually slightly worse than the higher voltage bins. And then you have this. It's a bit special. I will shortly show you what settings I managed to get on this. This stick actually doesn't seem to be all that bad, but it is still a long way off some proper BDI sticks. This is roughly equal to one of these. So this is a Hynix 8 gigabit CJR stick. Specifically, it's the Corsair one that uses the dual rank PCB, but is actually only single rank. This one does about the same settings. This one runs a little bit higher frequency, it runs better TRCD, but this one does worse TCL, the exact same TRAS, worse TRFC. Like in some things it does better, some things it does worse. I'm pretty sure by the end of it, if you like set sub-timings and tertiaries, they're gonna be pretty roughly equal in terms of actual performance. So this OEM stick is roughly equal to a CJR stick. Other chips that it might compare to is something like Micron 8 gigabit Rev E. I've never used that chip myself, so I'm just guessing here, but that's another like somewhat not super expensive but higher performance chip. Because getting two of these. So for this one I paid 19 euros. There's the other stick that's coming was like 25. Usually you can find these for like 25 to 30 on eBay. So getting two of them is gonna roughly land you at like 50 to 60 euros. And that's pretty much the exact same price as getting like one of the cheaper Crucial Rev E bins, or like a Patriot Viper Steel CJR kit. So yeah, so like price-wise, it's about that-ish. And yeah, performance-wise, it's also about that-ish. It's still BDI, like you can tell by the product number. So you can see how it says BB2, the first B indicates the die revision. And then on the chips itself, it also says 5WB, the B again indicating the die revision, so this is B die. Specifically, we're dealing with 5WB BCRC. The CRC, which you can also see here again, indicates the binning data directly from Samsung. So Samsung's JDEC bin. You can also see here it's 2400 megahertz. So this is not the bottom of the barrel. There is BCPB, which would be 2133, which is technically worse according to Samsung. But funnily enough, most higher end B-die sticks actually use BCPB. Probably because it's just cheaper to buy, and when you overvolt B-die, the bin that Samsung gives them doesn't matter, because voltage scaling is way more important than what it does at JDEC. But yeah, so this is a 2400 CL17 1739 bin. 1.2 volts, obviously, because it's JDEC. And that's what the RC tells you. The first C is consumer temperature grade, so this is rated from 0 to 85 degrees. There's also I for industry temperature grade, which I think is minus 45 to 95 degrees. And then, yeah, RC is 2400, PB is 2133, and then there's also bins for like 2666, 2933, and 3200, which have their like own individual numbers. So yeah, so I think it's time to put this stick into my test bench and show you what it can run, and also show you some scores that I pre-recorded with the other DIMMs. So I checked this against one of my proper B-die sticks, which I run daily in my test bench, and I checked this against a CJR stick. This is the worst of my CJR. I also have Viper CJR, which does much better clocks and timings than this. But the settings that this does is still better than most XMPs you see. Like this beats a 3600 18, 22, 22, 42 XMP, which is one of the most common XMPs. This is also still faster than a 3200 16, 18, 18, 38. So this is still better than the vast majority of XMPs that you find. But it is not a specifically very high binned XMP. This stick I also only set the primaries on, whereas these two sticks both went with sub-timings, and this one even had tertiaries set. This one had tertiaries auto, this one had them set manually. So this one kind of has a little bit of an advantage, but as you're going to see, it does not win. Well, it's pretty obvious which wins. This one does. So, yeah, let's put it in the test bench and take a look at the settings. So, here's the test bench, sticks in the board, so let's turn this on. As you can also see, I have a rather high airflow fan directly over the memory, which does help keep it cool. So let's get into the BIOS. I'll switch the camera over to the capture card once we're in. Okay. So here we are. That's the BIOS. You can already see the pre-recorded numbers for the CJR stick that only had the primary set, for the Viper B-die, that's at my proper daily settings, and then also the stock results for this stick. And now we're going to take a look at what this OEM B-die stick can overclock to. First I have to say, I have the CPU overclocked at 5.3 GHz and 5 GHz ring. It's 8700K, by the way, I should mention that. I did that for all the results, just so that there's no potential CPU bottleneck, though I kind of doubt that there will be a CPU bottleneck when running RAM at single channel. But anyway. Yeah, so first thing, yeah, there's really no XMP on this. It's just JDEC. And yeah, so that's what I mean by it's not all too bad, because I've heard from people, oh yeah, if you get an OEM stick, it's quite possible that you can't even get 3200 to work, or like you're going to hard wall between like 3500 and 3300. That's why I think this one's actually kind of lucky, like pretty good, because it does 3600. I don't think I've heard of someone getting 3600 on an OEM stick yet. Admittedly, I haven't done a ton of research on it, but as the highest OEM overclock I was aware of before I got my stick was 3466. So frequency-wise, this one's actually not too bad. And voltage scaling-wise, it scaled all the way to 1.5 volts. So I did most of my early testing at 1.6 volts because I was like, hey, it's B-die, you can yeet voltage on this, and you might as well just get the little bit of scaling that it has out of it. Then I was advised to not do that because apparently setting more than 1.5 volts can sometimes create more problems than it solves. So by that point, I had my frequency, I had my primaries and half of my secondaries. So I was able to do a test, just like lowering the voltage and seeing, hey, are my peak results still stable? And yes, they were all the way down to 1.5 volts. So that's what we're running, which is also not too bad, an OEM B-die, because again, like the OEM sticks usually stop scaling pretty early, and 1.5 is not all that early. But I don't really know how it compares. Like, I've seen other people run like 1.45. I think I've actually seen people run more than 1.5, but that doesn't specifically mean it scales all the way to that. But yeah, like it scales to 1.5 volts, which is better than what it could have been. For VCCIO and VCCSA, I just set 1.3 volts. The board does overvolt these under load, so you get about 1.35. That's just the maximum dailyable voltage that I've been told to use, so that's just what I set. Like, yeah, the memory controller is not going to be the problem here. And this one's actually kind of important. I found this out recently, which is why the daily settings are 16, 16, 16 and no longer 18, 16, 16, because this setting makes low CAS latency work and also sometimes helps getting a bit higher frequency. So just setting PLL termination to 1.1 volts makes things work better, at least on Asus boards. On Gigabyte and MSI, I never had to set this. They just do it by themselves, but I guess Asus boards need a little bit more babysitting. And now we're gonna take a look at the timings. So it does 3600 CL15, which is not too bad. Like a typical B-die overclock that you see on something like Ryzen is 3600 CL14. This is only one tick off of that. So it can't be that bad, right? Well, here's the part. CAS latency really doesn't do much for your performance. What does do much for your performance is TRCD. As you can see, we are not at TRCD 15. Like usually, B-die does flat primaries, but this OEM stick, damn does it not do flat primaries. So TRCD and also TRP, because on Intel they are both linked together, are at 23. Which is pretty damn loose. That is looser than Samsung 8GB C-die. And C-die is one of the worst chips ever made. Yeah, so like that 3600, 18, 22, 22, 42 XMP that I was mentioning, that's like a C-die XMP. That's also about the best that the chip can do. Like, you're gonna need some really good C-die, or just gotta be really good at memory overclocking to get it any higher than 3600, 18, 22, 22, 42. And yeah, in terms of TRCD, TRP, this one's worse than C-die. It just kinda is. But moving on, TRS is not too bad. This is the same that the CJR does. Actually, CJR might do like 27 at 3600. Since the CJR is at slightly higher frequencies. But yeah, it's not too bad. It's much better than the 42 that C-die does. But compared to other B-die, it's still a bit slow. Like, for example, the B-die I have in my daily system is also at 3600, but that one does 26 TRAS. And the Vipers, I haven't tested them, but the Vipers are higher voltage rated than the kit in my daily. Like my daily kit's 1.35 volts because it's a 3214 bin. I think the Vipers might do like 24. So TRAS is not too bad, but it's not B-die levels. Command rate is another one. It does not run 1T command rate. It is very much unstable at 1T command rate. It does not like 1T command rate. Like if I go a little bit lower on the frequency, there's a possibility it's gonna start running 1T command rate, because like I am literally at the limit of the frequency. If I set it just one step higher, it's gonna error out even if all the timings are loosened out as far as they go. So yeah. I wanted to do a maximum frequency overclock. So that's the timings you get. And it continues. So here my RRDs, MIT4, they look awful. So this is a first twofold, because this is the first time I had to set an RRD timing to higher than 6. And it's also the first time I couldn't set my T4 to 16. I cannot get this lower than 618. Optimal for performance is 4,416. Sometimes you need to do like 6,416. But on B-die, usually 4,416 should work. That does not go for OEM sticks. So 8,618 is what you get. TRFC, compared to other B-die, also pretty bad. Just for comparison, the 4400 kit, that one runs 320 TRFC at 4400. At 3600, I don't know what the Viper kit does, but my daily kit at 3600 does 250. That's like almost half. But if you compare to other chips again that are like closer to what OEM B-die costs in price range, which is like CJR about matches this. My Vipers, I think, did around 450 at 3600, so this is slightly better. And 8 gigabit C-die from Samsung. Like I got the numbers, Buildzoid had a kit that he overclocked, he was at 466 TRFC. So this one is slightly better than both of those, but it's a 3-digit timing. Even 10 ticks difference or more are not gonna translate into much of a performance difference. However, TRFC, like compared to the vast majority of chips, is pretty decent. Just compared to other B-die, it's not very good. TR-EFI is just maxed out. I have not found a stick yet that doesn't just max this out, so that's good, I guess. And now we kind of get into the range where I don't really know what to set the timings to or what I would expect from a certain memory chip for these timings. I'm just going to list them off. So TWR5, TRTP6, we already had T4. The WTR is a bit special because the board actually trains these one tick higher than you set. So the actual WTRL is 8 and the actual WTRS is 6. CKE1. CWL13, like as far as I know, this one's just always 2 ticks lower than your CAS latency, and we had CL15, so there you go, 13. It also doesn't post lower, so I tested it. And here's the tertiaries. So I actually bothered to set tertiaries here. This is where I probably left most performance on the table. Because it was getting late and I didn't run any benchmarks until I was like done setting all the settings. The only indication of performance I had was how fast TM5 would finish, and at the beginning it was like over 20 minutes, by the end it was like 14 minutes. So yeah. So when it comes to the tertiaries, I've been told the read and write ones you want to have in 6, 4, and then 6, 6, and then the same thing for the write, like 6, 4, and then 6, 6. But the read-write ones and the write-read ones, I don't know what these are supposed to be. The bot trained these to like 35 and then like 29, 27 or something like that. So I lowered them down slightly. I don't think these are maxed out, because at that point I was getting a bit tired and I concluded I probably have most of the performance out of this kit. So yeah, I might still try to get these lower. So don't take these tertiaries as maxed out. Other than that, the secondaries and the primaries, I tested all of these basically to maximum. Like setting these lower will cause errors or just not post. But for the tertiaries, yeah, these can probably go a bit lower. So let's save and go into our OS and run a little bit of time spice so we can get a score to compare to. Okay, so here's our result. $8,281. So let's put this in. I have it prepared here. 8281. So yeah, here's the final results. As you can see, it is quite far off the actual B-die kit. That's pretty much exactly 1,000 points less. So OEM B-die, even like mostly completely maxed out, is still gonna lose to a properly binned kit of B-die. There's just, yeah, there's just no question. OEM B-die, you could theoretically get a DIM where all 8 chips are really good, but the chances of that are extremely low. But as you can also see, that is still a pretty nice increase over stock. Like if you for some reason you have one of these sticks, because maybe you have like a pre-build or you got these from someone who was throwing out a server, you can still get a lot of extra performance from overclocking these. And you can see it actually beats the CJR sort of XMP stand-in, but purely because the CJR did not have any secondaries or tertiaries set. If I set secondaries and tertiaries on that kit, it will probably match or beat this kit. But since most people just set XMP and forget, and most people actually set worse XMPs than this CJR was running, you can get better performance than the vast majority of people on a kit like this. It's just not the best way to get performance like this, because as I said before, this is about the same price as a CJR kit or as like a crucial Rev E kit. Getting those kits first off gets you a higher rated frequency and probably better bin chips. And also, well, Rev E is also kind of inconsistent, but CJR is not as big of a gamble, as far as I know, as B-die is. So if you get like a CJR kit, especially a bin CJR kit, you probably have much better chances to get actually good performance. Because again, this is just a sample size of 1, and as far as I know, this is actually pretty good as far as OEM B-die goes. I'll be checking my other DIM as well once it arrives. And we'll see how good the chances are of getting 3600 CL15 to work. But yeah, so these are the final results. Yeah, like if you want just cheap B-die to mess around with, I guess get some of these. they are fun, and they're still B-die, so they still do some things like B-die usually does. It's just that the settings that are important for performance usually suck. Like, it doesn't have much voltage scaling, TRCD sucks, RRDs and T4 suck, TRFC sucks, the frequency doesn't go very high. Like, those are basically the main reasons why OEM B-die is kinda bad. But again, this only costs about half as much as a proper B-die kit costs, and as far as I can see, this is not just half the performance. So, yeah. But again, there's better options to get this class of performance at this price range. Also, the chips will be like, you're not gonna get a green PCB, you're gonna get like proper heat spreaders and stuff. But anyway, so these are the overclocking results for this OEM stick of Samsung 8GB B-die. And I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and until next time, goodbye.